Hello everyone, and welcome to Straight Chilling. Each week we watch and review a horror film for your entertainment. You can send all questions and comments to straightchillingpodcast@gmail.com, and don't forget to keep chilling.
Yeah, we straight chillin', serial killing. 5 cold feelings on the mind, got you reeling. 5-star ratings from the floor to the ceiling. If you get your 1 star, no time for feelings. Got a demon DJ, all the 1s and 2s. By the name Elzebub, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all in 2. And prepare to hear the legend of the Straight Chillin' crew.
What up, nerds, and welcome to a very extra episode of Straight Chilling. My name is Bob, and I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode number 264, recorded Sunday, April 26, 2020, also known as Alien Day. And tonight we're talking about the movie Alien from 1979, which was the winner of our April poll pick. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Astoria, Oregon, we got our boy Randy Gandy. G. Landy, what's up, man?
Hello, gentlemen.
How's it going, everybody?
The consistency is what I appreciate about this joke.
It's just going to be unfunny for a long time, and then one day it'll be funny again.
At least there's a hard G on the end of the word man.
Oh, yeah, that's, the way God intended.
As there always should be. Last but not least, calling in from Southern Korea, we got our boy Soju. What's up, man?
What up? It's your boy Soju. Nothing crazy this week.
Man.
I know, classic. No,
the wind up, I got excited, and then
I thought there'd be a chest burst stain or something. Yeah,
no.
Egg
you don't
stain?
think Soju's good enough, Rob? That's not good enough for you anymore.
No. Well, you set this expectation, and then you let us down. It's not cool.
It's like watching an episode of The Simpsons, and the couch gag is them sitting on the couch.
Oh, well.
If you don't want to give out bonuses, fine. But when people count on them as part of their salary, what you did, it's just plain wrong.
Hallelujah. Holy shit. Where's the Tylenol?
Don't beat me with the hose.
A rubber hose.
Rubber hose. That would beat you. It's too soon. It's too soon.
It is.
Oh, man. Before we get into the review, let's tackle some housekeeping real quick. This is the last reminder. If you support us on Patreon at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a poll pick, our monthly poll pick. May poll pick is currently posted, the theme of which is going to be horror comedy. The movies you can vote between are Shaun of the Dead, Young Frankenstein, and Tucker and Dale vs. Evil.
Bomb?
Juice.
How those numbers looking?
Tucker and Dale vs. Evil winning by 2 votes. Slightly besting Shaun of the Dead, Young Frankenstein. Not a chance in hell, baby.
Damn, man. Those
I don't know if everyone votes for Young Frankenstein, then it would win, right, Bob? And that how voting works.
We got a Bernie Sanders voter in the house.
All it would take is everybody voting one way, and then that would win.
All it would take is winning the vote, and then the vote's won. So great.
Get your votes in before the end of the month. Starting May 1st, we're going to have our June poll pick up there. I'm going to wait. I'm not going to announce what that is yet. I'm going to tantalize people.
Don't you need to? Because our next episode is not going to be until... I think you need to.
It'll be in May. It's fine. I'm gonna let people just wonder what's in a Wonder Bowl.
Let them stew in it.
Damn.
The first is on what, Friday? Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be a couple days behind. It'll be fine. Also in Patreon news, we have not 1 but 2 brand new Patreon supporters. We got to give mad shouts outs to Carly H. and Monica. Thank you guys so much for signing up on Patreon and supporting us. It really means a lot to us, helps us keep the lights on. And as is tradition around these parts, we got to slap that ass.
Taking the hat off and
Straight
everything.
chillin' salute. Here you go.
Slap my ass! Slap me in the ass!
Forgot you guys.
God!
You guys do not like it when I skip one.
You got it. Nope. Yeah. Don't get cheap on me.
Oh, God!
Consolidation is for the weak.
Slap me in the ass.
Yep.
These people pay for an ass slapping, right?
That's
They
true.
get their
We got to
own
keep it beat red.
individual ass slap. Okay.
You know, when we finally strike it big and start getting that binging with Babish sort of Patreon viewership, we're going to be like half slap my ass.
Slap.
We're going to have to move to the rapid fire slapping.
Slap my ass.
It's like when football players run out and they're just like, they've got their hands out and they just run by everyone, you know.
Good game.
Slap my ass, slap my ass, slap my ass,
slap her ass.
I remember saying that in T-ball. Yeah. Slap your ass, slap your ass, slap your ass. Yeah.
I like this theme of jokes that we have here.
What a bit.
That's pretty much all we got as far as Patreon. Juice, what do you have?
So this week, coming up on YouTube, I will be reviewing the newest game that I played on Twitch, which is the Resident Evil 3 remake, which just came out a couple weeks ago. So it's a brand new game. I had finished it even after my streaming fiasco of losing several hours, which is driving me insane.
Never forget.
Never forget. So I will have that up on YouTube this week. So if you didn't know, we do have some exclusive content. So if you subscribe to us at youtube.com/Straight Chilling Podcast, you can check that content out. This week, it will be a new video game review. At this point, like getting a little deep in the reviews. I don't know. I've been doing it for like almost a year and a half now. So if you are curious about horror video games, we've recorded maybe close to like 12 to 15 horror video game reviews so far. So yeah. New one coming out this week.
Nice little back catalog to work through.
Mm-hmm. Resident Evil, man. They've been on this streak of releasing these remakes, and they've kind of got it down now. They're talking about potentially doing 4 because they did 2 last year and then 3 this year, and like they play like very similar. And so I think it was pretty easy for them to kind of crank it out, and they're fun, man. So even though I think 4 is a really good game, I'd totally be down for a 4 remake. Randy, I know you played 4. I think Bob did too, didn't you?
A little bit, so. Yeah.
Oh no, okay.
Here and there.
Yeah, I played it at your domicile. I recall that. But yeah, it's that's absolutely one of my favorite games of all time, and that's coming from somebody who still hasn't played really any other Resident Evil game. Yeah. Just because I never either had the system or didn't want to spend the money at the time. You know, it just never really happened. And that game came out, and for whatever reason, I was in. I was all in, and it was a fabulous fucking game.
That actually was absolutely me. Until 2 remake came out last year, I hadn't played any of the other ones either. So
well, there you go.
But yeah, so I've been a real big fan of these remakes, and so if they made a 4, I'd be down.
We'll do it. I'm sure there's a bunch of like shitty side games they could remake.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Cool. I think the last bit of housekeeping we have is just a quick thanks to everybody that hung out with us this past Friday and watched Joe Bob in the last drive-in.
What are you talking about?
He showed Chopping Mall and Blood-Sucking Freaks were the 2 movies.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Don't ever become familiar.
You don't need to be. It's I know you well enough to know it would be pretty low on any scale you have.
What? Judge me, Randy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? You watch it. You let me know how wrong I am.
Don't judge me.
Not all great, but I blame it all on Chris Jericho, who was the co-host and chose the movie.
Chris Jericho.
Y2J.
Was he just picking out movies from Shudder? Is that their whole deal? It's like, let me pick this movie.
I don't. Joe Bob was on his podcast at one point, I believe, and they just kind of struck up a friendship that led to him being like. He's apparently like. He's extremely knowledgeable about the movie because he grew up with it, which is I don't know, man. If
horrifying?
Anybody said that to me that I didn't like know as a showman, I'd be like, you got some issues.
That movie's pretty rough, man. Regardless, it was a fun time. We had a pretty solid squad. The squad was deep. It was fun. We plan to host live watches every Friday until the end of season 2. So if you're interested in joining us, we're going to be having another live watch party this Friday on Zoom, and we're going to post a link to join our Zoom meeting, if you will, just before 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So
where's that? Like on the Facebook, on the socials, pretty
everywhere.
much.
Anywhere we are, there will be a link.
Oh yeah. And guess what, guys? There will be problems, as there was this week, but we get through them real quickly.
I saw the old Bish complain about getting booted.
We had no
Kathy from
problems
HR can't handle it
on our ends, really, or at least when I started
think we got
hosting
overloaded.
Yeah. But some people joining, I guess, depending on whatever internet provider you have, may have some lagging issues. But
Gotcha.
I don't know. My end was pretty damn crystal the whole time. So it's all
it was coming in fine for me. It was there was a little bit of a lag.
Don't blame the Straight Chillin' crew, okay?
Yeah,
We've done everything we could.
Blame Zoom. Everybody's doing that. That's the thing to do now is blame Zoom for all of your problems. So fucking Zoom.
If anything, you should be praising us.
Oh my God. All right, this house has been kept. This house.
I don't think we need to ponder on that any longer.
We don't. Move along. Well, let's go ahead and talk about what we've been watching this week.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
Randy, what have you been watching?
Compared to other quarantine weeks, it was a pretty light week for me in terms of time to watch shit. So the things that I got to watch this week have been The Wire, first and foremost. I finally got Becky to start watching The Wire with me.
She's never
moderately okay with it. Yeah, she's not. I love Becky, and she doesn't like to watch very many shows patiently. Like she likes to watch. She can do other things while she's watching. Like you know, what I mean? And that's not a show you can afford to not pay attention to and hope to keep up. Yeah. So I get it, but you know, she's agreed to watch, and she's very graciously allowed me to pretend that she enjoys it, and it's great. I also watched a documentary called Circus of Books that just dropped, I think, yesterday. Did you guys hear about this on Netflix?
No.
So it's a documentary about a bookstore, at least the facade of a bookstore that's, I believe, in Santa Monica, called Circus of Books, where hardcore gay porn was sold in the 80s and became sort of like a centerpiece of gay culture in that area during like the AIDS crisis and all this shit. It was really interesting. And it's owned by a couple of like pretty religious, fairly conservative Jewish people. They just were more like, we need to make a living, so we're going to go do this. And they bought this shop. They started buying hardcore pornography from Larry Flint, specifically gay, and they built a community. So good for them. It was a really interesting story.
You know, you're filling the need. You know, you're filling a hole.
You know, yes, you are filling several holes in some cases.
Totally.
At least 3 holes. Schitt's Creek. I finally got on that. Been watching 5 or 6 episodes, and I enjoy it quite a bit.
Schitt's Creek?
Schitt's Creek. Yeah, you're not familiar?
I am not.
It's a comedy, like sort of like single camera sitcom with Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy's son and daughter, and then one other person. And they play a very, very affluent, wealthy family that has, it's very kind of Arrested Development-y, where they are just poor now. And the only asset they have to their name is a town that they purchased as a joke called Schitt's Creek. And so they go and live in Schitt's Creek, which is in, middle of nowhere. And they're dealing with not, being in the lap of luxury, private jet sort of situation anymore. Okay. It's pretty funny. It's like, kind of low impact and fun to watch. So, I mean, I'm late to the party on this too. Apparently there's a legion of fans of this show, and I just kind of like let it slide for so long, but it's great.
Interesting.
And then last and not least, I don't know if I brought up, because I actually finished this last week or maybe the week before, but I finished American Horror Story 84, which I would say is probably my favorite season that I have personally seen, and of which there are very few. I've only seen like maybe 3 all the way through. And it's definitely my favorite. I think that particular, I still stand by the statement that I think that the slasher format is perfectly suited for that show, because it doesn't need any time or suspense or anything like that. It's just splatterfest, and just people need to be killed a lot and really uniquely and by unique, interesting, sort of villains. And I think it accomplished that. It doesn't do a lot. There's no thinking going on, really. It's not a thinking man's show by any means. It's just sort of a fun romp, and it fit which is what several of my favorite slasher movies are. So I stand by it. I think it's pretty good, and I would recommend it. Other than that, just been working.
Boring.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Cool. Juice, what you been watching?
I watched a movie from 1945 called Dead of Night. And it is a British horror anthology. So a lot of things going on there. And as far as I know, I've been like really trying to search. I was watching some older anthologies. I watched that Japanese movie. Kaidan. I watched that one, but that was like 1965. So this one predates it by 20 years. So it's the earliest one I've been able to find as far as I can tell so far. It's kind of funny because it's black and white and they do that kind of, old school actor's voice, the kind of acting that they put on, but they're also British and the 40s. So the lingo that they use sometimes is like wild. Like I understand what they're saying, but like hearing them say those words is like insane. But it was interesting. I liked, I talked a little bit about anthologies before about kind of how I like the format of at least connecting them. The way they did this one was the premise is there's this architect who goes to look at this house out in the countryside that needs to kind of be built on a little bit. Like they want to add some rooms. He walks in and there's a bunch of people in this house. There's like 6 or 7 people in this house. And he's like, oh shit, like I've seen you all before. I've dreamed this. And it's all kind of like coming back to me. And he's like, I know you all already. And they're trying to figure it out. Like, why do you know us or whatever? And then so they each tell their own kind of like, well, in my life, this weird thing happened. And then and so like, it's kind of like that's a story, cool. Kind of like almost like a campfire. So
it's got a good wraparound sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, it's got a main story. So they're like these, like it goes into each individual person. They're like, oh, well, I did this. And then like, it kind of comes out. So it almost starts to become like this like mystery too. So it's like just this weird culmination of things, but it's pretty solid. It's really interesting. To see, like I said, as far as I can tell, like it's the oldest horror anthology I've been able to find. So I checked that out. Also, Bob recommended a movie to me called Southbound. 2016. I watched that and bumpy ride up and down. There were some segments where I was like, I am really into this. And then other segments where I really was not. It was really like a hot and cold situation, which is unfortunate because I kind of liked how they handled their anthology too, because they almost just like blended into each one. So I kind of liked that format where it didn't have to like take you out of the story. Like you didn't have to zoom out and then zoom back in. It was just kind of like continuous, just one into another one, just kind of casually. So that was cool. But yeah, the segments themselves were pretty hit or miss for me. We're going to talk about this a little bit today, but this is one of those situations where like CGI, I feel like really negatively affected like this kind of more lower budget type of situation. People just need to realize you can do a lot with practical effects. We're going to talk about that in Alien today. We also last week all enjoyed a video of Puddle of Mud, a band from Rob and Randy's time.
Oh yes. Yeah. Had you ever heard of Puddle of Mud before, June?
Butchering a Nirvana song. We all got a pretty good kick out of that.
Dude, it is so bad. It's so bad.
Wow.
I feel bad for the dude, and I don't have any strong feelings about Puddle of Mud besides like, oh yeah, that's a band that existed at a time when I was alive. That's about it. And then, but I'm watching this, I'm like, oh my God, this guy has to like watch his back and be like, holy shit.
His guitarist was laughing at him.
Yes. It's like not.
It's rough.
Did that person practice? Is it possible that they even attempted to sing this once before?
Several times.
It seemed like his eye was going to burst a blood vessel at any moment.
If you haven't checked that out, what is the song about a girl? I think was the song he was covering. And in the same vein, so everybody's like on lockdown and quarantine and stuff in the States. And so there've been just like these kind of creative things that have been happening. One of them that I saw was this concert in Fortnite. So Fortnite's a game, and they hosted this Travis Scott concert in the game. And it was cool, except like, as far as I could tell, I think they were just playing the songs. And it wasn't like a live.
Oh, it wasn't even live play.
Well, I need to do some more research into it, because it only lasted about 10 minutes long. So it wasn't like, 45-minute set or even a half. It was like 10 minutes long, but they had this like build up to it. And like, it's weird because like the person's filming it from their avatar in the game. So it's almost like that, like Ready Player One movie or whatever. Like, you're in the game and you're a person, and like there's this event that's happening. And since you're in this virtual world, the animators like animated this rapper, Travis Scott, and they made him like enormous in this world, like a giant. Like, so your avatar is like a normal person, and he like was like standing in the ocean, like just gigantic. But then he would like, so the song would be performing, and like he would like warp around, and like when like a beat would drop or something, like all the avatars would like fly up into the sky. So it was like this like weird like gaming experience. It was like really cool to watch because it was only 10 minutes, and I was like, that's just a really interesting like concept, like these virtual concerts or these virtual experiences, and how it starts to shape like what, because like concerts have started to become where like people barely even perform anyways. The track is just playing like you would listen to it on the radio, and it's just like this big party. Like that's what like concerts are becoming anyways for a lot of like hip hop artists and all that. Just like I don't know. So it was just weird to see this. It was just weird to see this like virtual concert, and it was cool. Like it was really all about the animators, I guess, at that point, and like how they affected like the physics and planned out this like 10-minute event, I guess. But it looked cool.
You know who doesn't play the track and lip sync to it? Fucking Puddle of Mud.
Puddle of Mud. And you know who does?
Integrity.
You know who's been doing that for years? Andrew W.K.
Hey, he plays with a band too, sometimes. Not all the time.
I've seen that dude wail on a piano, so I don't know about you.
And it's way better than whatever like digital concert you're describing.
That you've already watched. Oh, you already saw it, huh, Bob? You watched it already. I didn't realize you were familiar.
My mind was blown when I listened to a radio track with an animation set to it.
Old man Bob.
I never heard of such a thing in my entire music video life. Never.
Yeah.
Okay, boomer.
Okay. You are older than both of us. Let's continue.
Not true.
I've watched some stuff, and now you're going to hear about it. I saw The Exorcist 3. Have you guys seen this from 1990?
I have. I watched it not long ago.
I actually never have, but I've heard good things.
Solid. I have not seen part 2, but I definitely recommend part 3. This is more.
That seems to be the going rate.
Yeah. This seems to be more of like a police procedural, like detective sort of take on the Exorcist film. It takes place like 15 years after the original movie, and the detective that you're sort of following throughout the course of this film is like an old-time friend of Damien the priest from the original movie. And this guy claims to be
the Gemini killer.
The Gemini killer, whom apparently died years prior. But this guy claiming to be the killer has all these like very intimate facts. He's got all this information that only the true killer would have. So this detective is like kind of getting his mind blown, and he starts believing in this possession. And you kind of watch him put the pieces together in real time. Randy, do you know if you watched the director's cut? Was there any like old-timey looking VHS footage cut into whatever you watched?
Didn't look like VHS, so I guess not.
Okay.
I don't know. I didn't realize there was one, but I watched it on Amazon Prime or whatever.
Yeah, there's a director's cut that Scream Factory put out 2 years ago, I think. They put a Blu-ray out of this, and it's like the most complete cut of the movie to date, but some of the footage had been destroyed, so they had to pull it from like a VHS. And
yikes.
It doesn't look great, but the additional information that you get from that footage is like extremely beneficial, I think, anyways. It's like an extra 15 minutes or something.
It's a confusing fucking movie, so maybe maybe I was missing that.
Yeah, you get
I had a hard time following like like who's who, because there's some like multiple personality situations going on.
Yeah, for sure. You get a lot more one-on-one time with the detective and the guy claiming to be the Gemini killer, like in the prison cell, a lot more. And you get a lot more detail on like what's going on in the Gemini killer's head. And it's like really, really interesting. Also, this movie has like a handful of really iconic scares. I don't know. If you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend checking it out. And if you can get your hands on the director's cut, I believe it to be to your benefit for sure.
Brad Dourif.
Yeah.
George C. Scott.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Just agreeing, man.
Just putting that shit out there.
I also watched The
Hail Satan.
That's hey. All right. Hail Satan, brother. I watched The Hitcher from 1986 for the first time as well. Have you guys seen this?
I have not.
I saw you bought it, Bob.
I did, yes. I got it on the DVD. This is
whoa, old school.
Whoa. This is you're a whole fistful of blues.
This is produced by HBO. I'd never seen it. Apparently, obviously, it was on HBO back in the day. But I was, we were all super young if we were alive at all.
And yet, you've seen the Blair Witch Project. Around the same time, Bob.
Neither here nor there. This movie's like just a straight up butt clenchy thriller, like from go. Like it sort of like launches out the gate full speed ahead, and it doesn't let up. It's about an hour and a half long movie, and this kid driving down the road picks up a hitchhiker. It's like a stormy night. He's going to do this guy a solid, and the guy just tries to kill him like immediately. He's like, I'm going to kill you. And it's just chaos ensues from there. And this guy is sort of, he's murdering people just left and right. And he's playing with this kid, like, we're going to get arrested. And framing this kid for his murders. It's really solid. I recommend checking that out as well. The Hitcher.
What year was that?
1986.
86.
Right. Yeah, it's like kind of a slasher, but it's not. This guy's not lurking in the shadows. He's like right up in your face, like, I'm gonna fucking kill you. It's crazy. Recommend it. That's what I've been watching. That's all I got. Let's go ahead and jump into the main event. We're talking about Alien. Let's kick it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
Tell me.
Let me tell you what's on the back
Bob,
of the box.
Did you buy this?
Do you have a box?
I have the Alien quadrilogy on Blu-ray.
Oh, God.
Fistful of blue stick.
Was it the director's cut, Bob? Did you watch it?
I don't know if there is a director's. Is there? Are you fucking with me, or do you actually know that there is one?
There is one.
I think there is one based on the trivia.
Oh, okay, then no, I didn't. I just watched the theatrical.
Good. That's the one you should watch.
Okay, good. So, Alien from 1979. This was directed by Ridley Scott, written by Dan O'Bannon, starring Sigourney Weaver, Tom Skerritt, John Hurt, a whole host of other people. Plot synopsis is as follows. After a space merchant vessel receives an unknown transmission as a distress call, one of the crew is attacked by a mysterious life form, and they soon realize that its life cycle has merely begun. Oh. Gentlemen, have you seen this movie before? Would you recommend people check it out? Randy?
Yeah, I saw this movie one other time that I can recall when I was in high school. So, I'm coming into this pretty cold, actually. This is not, a movie that I put, that comes first to mind when I think horror. It's not one that I, specifically had a love for, but it is such, the biggest fucking reputation in horror movies, just this side of fucking The Shining. So it was great to rewatch it. And yeah, I would definitely recommend it, if only for that reason, because it is such a flashpoint of the horror genre. But even setting that aside, it's worth a watch. It's definitely worth a watch on the biggest screen you can get, because it is an immersive fucking movie. So yeah, I recommend.
Cool. Juice, what about you?
Yeah, I don't remember the first time I saw this, I don't know, maybe as a teenager, 12 or 13, but I've seen it like many times since. And in fact, earlier this year, I did a like top 10 episode on Horrorphoria, and this made my list. And so I would highly recommend that you check this out. 1979, it is a classic for sure. And it is, it is great space horror.
Cool. I'm a little more in the Randy camp as far as this movie goes. Like, I'd only seen it once prior in high school, and I was a little lukewarm on it, to be honest. I think this movie reminds me of The Shining in the way that I had to watch The Shining like 3 or 4 times before I like really, really appreciated it. And I think that's probably going to be the case for me here. I definitely do enjoy it. And it has several like landmark scenes. And if it's something that you have not seen and you are a horror movie fan, obviously it's a must watch.
You're going to get some eyebrows at the conventions.
Yeah.
I can't wait to defend this film against you. Noobs.
Oh yeah, we're coming at this film hard.
You won't really have to.
Alien, schmalien.
Yeah. Hard recommend, of course. Check out Alien. It is absolutely worth slamming into your eyeballs. But let's go and drop that spoiler warning. We'll get into the rest of the movie. Here we go.
Spoiler warning.
That's interesting about like you guys. I guess knowing the reputation, but not watching a lot. Because for me, I can't watch any space horror, and I know we did Sunshine earlier this year without comparing it to this movie. And so when I was like on Horrorphoria and talking about this, it's almost like a staple in the sense of like Jaws kind of rules the realm of like the sea. Yeah. Whereas like Alien rules the realm of like space horror for me. Like it is the staple. It is like the measure of which everything else is kind of judged.
So you're saying this movie is Jaws in space?
Yes.
Jaws in space, everyone.
That's what it is. That's what
I mean, kind of.
I want to give a quick shout out real quick to Corey, who's a friend of this show. He had this documentary about the making of Alien. It's called Memory. He had a copy of it on Blu-ray, and he let me borrow it because I mentioned to him that we were going to be talking about this movie. And it was super informative, and I got like a few factoids from it that I'll mention throughout the course of talking about this movie. But shouts outs to Corey. And if you are into Alien and you want to get a little more on the history of how it came to be, the movie is called Memory. You can get it on Blu-ray, on Amazon, and probably anywhere else. I totally totally worth a watch. Recommend that for sure. I have a like kind of an extensive synopsis. If you guys don't mind, I can blast through the entire plot of this thing because I feel like
blast it, Diddy.
I feel like there's so much to talk about and like so many layers to dive through. Like I don't want to get too hung up on the plot if we can avoid it.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like the plot itself is pretty simple with a couple twists.
Fairly straightforward. Yeah.
So here's what I have to say about that.
Oh, God, yes. Come with me.
Let's roll.
Here we go. All right. The crew of the Nostromo, a salvaged spacecraft, returning to Earth, are awakened early from cryosleep by the ship's computing system because it encountered a distress signal. The crew of 7 are obligated to investigate the signal via a contract and reluctantly do so, which delays their return home. They take a small craft and land on the planetoid emitting the signal. They enter another ship they find, and there's a dead alien life form that seems to have burst from the inside. They also find several large eggs, one of which hatches, and there's an arachnid-type creature they refer to as a facehugger, which latches onto Kane's face. They return to the ship where Ripley refuses to let them on because there's a mandatory 24-hour quarantine. But Ash, the character Ash, opens the hatch anyway and lets them on board. They attempt to cut the alien creature. Yeah, I know. We'll get to that. They attempt to cut the alien creature off Kane's face, but it bleeds acid, which eats through several decks of the ship. The face hugger eventually leaves Kane's face and dies, and Kane wakes up and seems to be in relatively good health. The crew decides to have one final meal before they return to cryo sleep, at which point Kane becomes violently ill and the, quote, chest burster bursts through his chest and hauls ass. So the crew is attempting to hunt down this alien life form with flamethrowers on the ship, and it grows exponentially and ends up being this huge alien, which is later referred to as a xenomorph. Ripley
not in this movie, though.
Not in this movie, yeah. Ripley eventually gains access to the ship's log and finds out the central mission objective has been overridden, and they are now to return to home with the alien life form
at all costs.
At all costs, yeah. The entire crew is expendable at this point. So Ripley confronts Ash about this. They come to blows, and Ash attempts to kill Ripley by shoving a rolled-up nudie magazine down her throat. The other crew members intervene and knock Ash's head off.
Dirty
way to go.
Yeah. The other crew members intervene and knock Ash's head off, revealing he's a robot. At this point, all of the crew have essentially been picked off by the alien. Ripley rigs the ship to blow in 10 minutes. She grabs the cat, which there is a cat on board, and leaves via an escape craft. Turns out the alien has stowed away on the craft. She opens the airlock, which sucks the alien out into space, and she ultimately kills it with one of the ship's boosters and returns to cryosleep with the cat and sets her a return course to home. That's pretty much the entire plot of the movie. So
there we go.
That's what we got.
I am bedazzled.
Thank you. That was my goal.
Yeah. There, like this, watching it again reminded me, I picked up on it like a couple of times. I've watched it as an adult, but it kind of reminds me of Jurassic Park in that I remember watching this movie when I was younger, and there are a lot of things I just like didn't understand or pick up on or didn't have as much significance to me as they do now as a young adult who understands how the world works. But like the thing about like the guys, so there's like the guys who are like the who are the mechanics, and they're talking about like their shares of the job, and then also like they just refer to like the company and like how the company overrides them, and like it essentially comes down to like corporate greed and how they don't like care about the workers and how they're willing to like put them in harm's way in order to capture this alien life force in order to profit off of it or whatever. So I don't know, there was just a couple things. I know like at first they're all like bantering about like the shares and like stuff like that. It just makes a little more sense, I guess, now as an adult.
Yeah, it gives this whole crew like a very grounded feeling. Like they're all blue collar workers, but they're in space, which is like so fantastical to us at this point. Like we can't just get a job and fly out to space and go do whatever. But
it's weird to think of like a spaceship like that as a transportation crew. You know what I mean? Like it's weird. That's for it. It's a very grounded sort of take on the space adventure, because this isn't unusual for any of them, but it's also not like a utopia. These are people that are still working in some sort of capitalist society that's they're trying to get what they can.
This movie definitely has some commentary on capitalism with like the Wayland Corp, is that the name of the big evil
the owners? That basically built in that failsafe. Like that. That like completely. So, Ash is a robot, and the Wayland Corp, like, I guess, like programs him secretly to be the one in charge of getting the alien back to Earth for them to. Well, he's their Contra.
Study or potentially weaponize or sell off or whatever to monetize in one way or another.
Yeah,
he's the one that's going to run things if the crew becomes expendable, which is the case with this thing. And who knows how many other situations that would be the case too.
Yeah,
he's there to take control when the people aren't doing, like the human crew isn't doing what the company wants.
Which is what he does. Yeah, we first see that but it's weird though, because at first he's portrayed, he is portrayed as the scientist on board. And there is a captain. And even when the captain goes off to explore this alien planet, Ridley is then put in charge. Like she's number 2 in command. So he's not even like, as far as like on people's radar of like, should we respect this person or like give him our authority? He doesn't take that role, which is interesting because it just gives even though we don't see this company or deal with anyone from this company, it gives them even that more level of like distrust. Like, because this isn't like a legitimate like figure that you're supposed to follow and respect. He's like,
he's lower on the hierarchy.
Yeah, he's like secret.
It's actually kind of brilliant.
He's a robot. It's absolutely
because like
brilliant.
If they made it the captain a robot and said, "Oh, here's your captain," secretly. Yeah. Well, that's the guy who has to lead you into an alien space vessel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In order to get the thing, they had to have somebody who is going to be on the ship at all times. The scientist isn't going to go out. He's the one performing all the experiments on board. He's not going anywhere. It's brilliant for them to keep him there because he's the one that can like fuck shit up. He commands respect because of his station and in the world, like just being an intelligent man.
Yeah.
Or at least according to the people that think he's human.
Well, and he like serves as like kind of the doctor and stuff like he's the scientist.
He's a pivotal person without being the person that's going directly into danger where he can be overridden.
The mechanics in this movie, I forget the characters' names, but they're like the lowest rung characters.
Yeah.
So like after Ash opens
Parker
the airlock.
Yeah,
after Ash hits the airlock and lets the Kane back on with the face hugger latched onto his face, these guys they're like, nobody's listening to them, nobody's taking them seriously. They're not scientists, but they're like, hey, why don't we freeze him? Why don't we put him in cryo sleep? He's on board, which obviously shouldn't have happened because there's a quarantine that's supposed to go into place, but he's here now. Why don't we freeze him? That should take care of whatever problem is potentially going to happen.
And also at that point, save him.
If they had done that, like Wayland would have got the alien back, which is what they wanted, and everybody else on the crew would have got back, which is obviously what they also wanted.
Yeah,
it would have solved everything.
It all worked out.
But
then it would have the alien would have been on Earth.
Well, and then it also would have put the company in more like liability. Like they do a great job at like world
Justin's
building.
A company man here.
I'm just like, because there's another aspect too. This is just brilliant ways of doing like the show me, don't tell me kind of a little bit, but it's like very subtle because there's another instance where Ridley and the captain, what is his name? I can't remember the actual captain, who's a human being. Ridley's kind of like trying to argue with him. Dallas, yeah, where they first find the signal out in space. And the thing is the captain has access to this computer that they call Mother, which also kind of gives orders a little bit. It's like kind of like telling them like what the company wants. Yeah. And so she's having an argument like, I don't understand like why we're putting ourselves at risk for this. And he kind of shows like his tail between his legs a little bit, where he's like, you just got to do what the company at. Like he's almost like been through this before. He kind of like, even though he's the captain, you get the sense where like you can't even truly trust him because
he's a company man.
He's a company man. He's done this before, and he just submits to their will without giving a whole lot of thought to the crew. And that again comes up even when they're talking about their shares. They're like, the guys are complaining like the mechanics get, I guess, like half the pay or whatever of what the regular crew gets, and they are saying like when there's a signal going out and it's like, oh, it's an SOS, they're like, I'm not paid to do this. Like this isn't like, I'm not a rescue, like I'm not some hero, I'm like a mechanic, and like, are you gonna pay me more to do this or whatever? And so he kind of has to like
the contract
like, legal up.
Yeah.
So it does a great job of building this world that we can't really see. Like we never see the company, we never see like a rep from the company, but it's
Paul Reiser ain't in it yet.
Yeah, it sets the mood and the tone for the world, and also just like the design of the ship too, because like we were saying, oh, it's in space or whatever, but a lot of it looks like rugged. The design is brilliant.
They brought Blade Runner to space. They brought Blade Runner to Star Wars. It's got sort of like a feel of both. It's a hybrid, and it's using that H.R. Geiger sort of like template of semi-organic seeming technology.
So Geiger was originally enlisted. So Dan O'Bannon wrote this movie and like brought it to Fox, and he fell in love with Geiger's artwork. I guess he went to like a gallery opening and just like loved how Geiger took these like very like mechanical elements and like like put them together with like this very like humanistic sort of like sexual.
It is very bizarre indeed.
And it is very bizarre indeed. So he was like, hey, I want you to design the aliens for this movie. And then Geiger did it. And O'Bannon paid for these designs out of his own pocket because Fox wouldn't front the money. And then he got this book assembled, which they referred to as the Necronomicon, that had all of the art design for the movie. And O'Bannon brought it to Fox, and they told him to like fire Geiger immediately because it was like too twisted. It was like too fucked up for them. They're like, no, there's no way this guy's working on this movie. But then Ridley Scott was hired to direct the movie eventually, and because Ridley Scott was attached, they like doubled the budget. And then Dan O'Bannon went to him and was like, hey, check this book out right here. And he was flipping through it and immediately was sold. He's like, this is the alien. This is happening.
That's awesome.
And
that's fucking awesome.
He told Fox that's the way it was going to be, and that's how we got this great fucking movie. So thank you, Ridley Scott.
That's great because, Ridley Scott, like I was like doing, this was only his second movie though. So it wasn't even like the Ridley Scott. Obviously he got a big boost from this movie. Blade Runner was after this one. But before this one, like he wasn't, it was like, God, what was his first movie? It was like a historical piece, I think.
Ridley Scott?
Yeah, The Duelist marked Ridley Scott's first feature film as director, shot in Europe. It was nominated as the main prize at the film festival. I've never seen it. Oh, it's about Napoleon, the wars like in Napoleon's time. So yeah, it was like a period piece. And then he did this, and then he did Blade Runner. So that's like, I'm glad he was able to kind of like come in big dick swinging a little bit, but it wasn't even like the Ridley Scott that we know. Now, and even like taking on this movie, he wanted to do like another period piece, but Star Wars blew up and he kind of saw like, I guess, the potential. He got the dollar signs in his eyes.
And
then
around here that means big money.
Yeah, big money. So he accepted this and kind of cemented himself as like a standout director. So that's good.
Something they mentioned in that Memory documentary that I watched, which I definitely never considered this upon my first watch. They described this movie as being like a male rape movie, which it really is if you look at it. But it hadn't occurred to me, like just as a casual viewer, not reading much into it.
I kind of had the same feeling.
What was that?
It's like a male rape movie.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot like the sexual thing that's going on. I've always like kind of heard about that, but when I was a teenager, I didn't pick up on that at all. Obviously, I was too like aliens cool or whatever, and like watching it again, I gotta say like it was a sort of thing where it's like because I knew I don't know if it was because I knew that was a thing, like that was a talking point that I assigned that to this movie, or if it was just naturally obvious. But I don't think that I'm not really convinced that I would have thought of that on my own. That would have been an immediate thing. I would have thought of the capitalistic thing before I thought about the psychosexual things. Even though I did notice, like it's hard to ignore. Like they named the fucking the robot on the ship Mother. Like that's clearly that's not there on accident. Yeah. So like there's some shit going on in this movie, but the level of subtlety to it is, I think, kind of perfect. You know, like it's one of those things that like it's so easy to see that once you're introduced to it, but on its own merits, I feel like it's more obvious for female viewers.
But so after they mentioned it on that documentary, I was curious, so I like did some research and I found Dan O'Bannon. Like he's done obviously a lot of interviews before he passed away about this movie, and he goes on to say that chestburster scene functions as a metaphorical dramatization of the male fear of penetration, and that the quote oral invasion of Hurt's character was payback for all of those horror films in which sexually vulnerable women were terrorized by rampaging male monsters. So that was like fully intended by him when he wrote it.
Yeah, this is even in trivia, so I can like piggyback off of that. So Dan O'Brien and Ronald Shusett, O'Bannon, ran into a writing impasse while trying to work out how the alien would get aboard the ship. Shusett came up with the idea that alien fucks one of them. That's in quotes, which was eventually developed into the facehugger concept. This method of reproduction via implanting was deliberately intended to evoke images of male rape and being impregnated. So both writers were adamant that the facehugger victim be a man, firstly because they wanted to avoid the horror cliche of women being depicted as the easy first target, and secondly because they felt that making a female the casualty of a symbolic rape felt inappropriate, and thirdly to make the male viewers feel more uncomfortable with this reversal of genre conventions. And on top of that, Sigourney Weaver's character was supposed to originally be a man.
Yeah.
So that was even switched. So
See,
even like flipping all of those things kind of on their head and reversing like all of those roles was kind of like was very like,
maybe, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob and Justin, because you guys have the trivia on this, but like the thing that I heard about this movie, about Sigourney Weaver's casting specifically, is that they were not intending to like they were looking for a man, but they were just kind of open or whatever. They didn't really like, it wasn't like a thing. They weren't trying to make a stance on, casting a lead female or a strong female or anything like that. They just picked the person they thought would be best for the role, which I mean is obviously the way you should do it. But at the same time, like, how can you look at these other aspects and think that that wasn't a conscious effort? How is it not a conscious effort to if you're subverting all these other things, why not this other thing? Why is that suddenly like, I don't know. So like the truth behind that is a little confusing to me, because it seems like they definitely hired her in order to subvert expectations subvert the genre.
Yeah, Ridley Scott has stated that in the casting the role of Ripley, it ultimately came down to Sigourney Weaver and Meryl Streep. So they were looking at two women. It wasn't like
Meryl.
Yeah, Meryl Streep. The two actresses had been college mates at Yale. Ultimately, Weaver was offered the job because Streep was mourning the death of her partner. Goddamn, John Cazale at the time of casting. So, I mean, ultimately, he's saying that even if that were the case, like, it was still up between like two women. So it seems like at some point that was a focus, at least.
I know
casting women.
At least at the writing stage, it was all men. The crew was all men. And from what somebody mentioned on that documentary, I can't remember who, it was like they considered casting a woman for the lead role because it would potentially boost box office sales. Second wave feminism at the time was like, I guess, kind of on the downward spiral, but it was still there, and they thought maybe having like a female lead would help. And I don't know, it does like accidentally play into some of the themes here, but specifically I would argue the opposite, that if Ripley was played by a man, I think the scene where Ash tries to kill her by essentially raping her with a magazine in the mouth, like that would be another, that would just play into the whole like male rape.
That's true. That's a good point. Like, that does add to it, but I don't know. Like it's, her cast,
like
because it's such a late decision, it seems like it's not congruent in every way.
Yeah. But
with the rest of the movie.
Her character
not to its detriment, but
definitely not. I'm not saying that it should have been a dude, but it does seem like thematically from the writing standpoint, it probably would have been more consistent if it was played by a male, but her role is obviously like massive in this movie and adds a lot to the success of this movie.
And her career.
Yeah. I mean, she's like an incredibly strong female character, and the movie doesn't get hung up on the fact that she's female, which is
no, not at all
great.
Although it does do the obligatory nipples through the shirt panty shot at some point.
Dude, she needs to size up them draws. Those things were like size too small,
too big. They were hanging off her ass.
I thought they were too small because they weren't covering up her ass.
It seemed like it was sagging to me. Is she gets down to her skivvies in the end to re-enter like cryo sleep, which is necessary, I would imagine, if you're going to go into cryo sleep. But also, it wasn't like hypersexualized. Like everything she was wearing,
it wasn't. No,
just felt like standard issue. This is what Waylon Utoni gave you. All women get this shit. It might not be just the perfect size. It's what you got. Deal with it.
It could have very easily been a male role, because there's nothing about that's like nothing about the way she's acting or the way that even that she's interacting
she's
with the
not
world
like
at that point.
showering or anything like. Oh,
They're not doing a loving shot of her or anything.
No,
she's going about her business, taking like shifting gears and hitting gauges and shit like that. So yeah, you're right on that regard. I'm just like, but it's worth noting that happens, or that's that's just a consideration, because that is such a horror movie trope for in so many movies, especially for around that time, certainly around that time, and then the 80s. That it plays into it, but it's again kind of subversive in that it's not played for sexual appeal. It's played for
very
reality or for just it is. And the whole movie is everybody in this movie is so capable. Like there's not even like the one Joker character. I guess you could say Harry Dean Stanton and whatever the engineer. Yeah,
that one mechanic, like kind of the older guy, like kind of is, but not really. Yeah,
not to an extreme, or not to the extent that they are in most movies of this time in the horror genre. Like everybody is just out there to do their jobs, and that's all they really care about for the most part, with the exception of Ian Holm, who's a robot trying to do what the company tells him to.
Yeah. I also want to mention, like, in that scene where he's like, I don't know, just when he's shoving, it doesn't make sense, I guess. So like, if you are a robot and you have been programmed to make sure this alien gets back to Earth safely, and you have to kill this person in order to make that happen, why would you then choose to roll up a nudie magazine and ram it down their throat? That's like one of the least effective ways to kill somebody. Why don't you just you hit him in the head? Like, so I think that's a very significant choice to make. And then in addition to that, when the crew intervenes and they knock the robot's head clean off, he's like spouting this white liquid out of his mouth and out of his neck. And
he's a milky robot.
It's like pretty suggestive, I would say. So like, it's just weird. Like, I don't know. He's like shoving the patriarchy down her throat, metaphorically speaking, and they just knock that shit clean off. I mean, I thought it was interesting the way he's subtle as you might think it is, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I don't know.
To me, it played as subtle because I didn't. None of those things, because she is played so straight and played as such a capable person, and not like her gender is not in the equation at all. It's almost like intentionally avoided that she even is a woman in the first place. It never comes up, and it's never part of it. It almost seems like those things are not there. It's just, I'm not thinking on that level. I'm not thinking about gender at that point.
Yeah.
Like without the experience of knowing that this movie has those elements, I don't know that I would have naturally come to that conclusion on first watch, maybe not even on second. The only thing that I thought was an overt cue was the naming of the ship's autopilot or whatever as Mother, because that's so psychologically loaded. Like, I don't know, to me that's the most obvious thing. But you're right that, like, fucking Ash's choice to roll up I didn't also, this is the other thing, I didn't realize that was a dirty magazine he picked up. I just saw a magazine. And so in my mind it was just he's just killing her in a way that he just came up with on the fly.
Also in the background there's like centerfolds posted all over the wall too, so it's just like the whole thing is just geared
very sexualized,
geared one way.
I didn't feel it sexually. Like, I didn't feel that it was a sexual thing, but there's sexual like information to take in that you guys are bringing up. But it didn't naturally occur.
The feeling, it's all about the signals, though. I mean, I think those signals are there, but in the moment, I didn't feel like
the story,
it didn't feel like a rape scene, like in that way. Like it didn't. It felt like somebody was being
beaten over the head with this idea. Like, there's a lot of movies, some of them really good, where it's way less subtle than that. But like, I'm so focused on the fact there's an alien. Like the text of the story. In that case, this text is so strong because everybody's so capable, and it's just shit's going on that they can't really control.
Yeah.
Like all that, I'm so into that I'm not really paying attention to the subtext as much, which is exactly what you want in this movie, or in, I would say, most movies that have a subtextual idea that is trying to portray. I think it's to its strength that I didn't notice that, really, because it's just that sort of thing where it's like you have to make the conscious effort to peel the sticker to reveal the thing that everybody's talking about years later.
Yeah. Also, Ash,
makes sense.
After they dispatch Ash, they bring him back to try and get more information out of him as far as like this new objective is getting the alien back to Earth or whatever. And Ash just sort of like goes on about how they don't realize what they're dealing with and how Ash like really respects the simplicity of this creature and how it is like a survivor. Yeah, it'll do whatever it has to do to survive, and how it just like it like admires the shit out of this creature.
It admires that it removes emotion basically from the equation, which makes sense for a robot.
True.
But, I mean, to me, that's what I read that as. But there's definitely layers that you could dig into.
All of the alien designs are like hypersexual too. So potentially, if he's like absolutely all about this creature, maybe that somehow influenced him, like, you know, the face hugger, like going into the
like
dude's
reproduction level sex, not like sexual.
No, I think it's very sexualized too. I think even like the way the thing comes out of its mouth like gives like this twisted sex. I think it is very sexualized.
I don't know if
in a dark fantasy.
I have to intellectualize it in order to get that. I did not feel sexual anything.
Not like you want to bang the alien, but like
that definitely not. But like I see what you're saying, but even that, like, it didn't occur to me as like, man, this thing is like sexually abusing these people. That doesn't occur to me as much as, oh shit, this alien creature wants to kill you, like on a very base level of creature versus human.
I think it's more for me is that it's like I don't necessarily feel that, but it's also at the same time very, which I think is a great blend, honestly. It's very obvious to me that it is sexual though. And even it's interesting, like the thing that I thought we haven't brought up yet that was like has kind of always been obvious to me, I guess, is not only like Ridley Scott said like, oh, the fear of penetration from the chest burster, but to me always it like added to the idea of like, not only is this like a man getting raped essentially, but men, like no one wants to get raped, but like women have the extra fear of potentially getting pregnant from their rapes. True, like that's like an extra having thing that like women having to carry something inside them, not and there was even the fact of like they were like, we can't remove it, it could kill him or what, like even that idea, like I feel like those were intentional, and that's how it always stood out to me. It's like, oh my god, this thing like burst from this guy, it killed him, and like that fear, the gore that's surrounding it, like everybody like lays him out on the table or whatever, it just like comes out, and like that, I don't know, that's how it always stood to me, like in my mind, like that fear of I don't know, is being able to associate then is like, oh yes, that is terrible. And I can associate that more because there's this man and I'm a man, and like I can see like how terrible that is. Like that was always at the forefront of my mind.
We're not hosting an intergalactic kegger down here.
Yeah.
We should be.
Can we also linger a moment on that chestburster scene and how like fucking iconic that scene is? Like the way the blood spurts, like I don't know how you could ever see that coming. One of the actresses, I forget her name, but like she got hit in the face with the blood and like stumbled backwards and like literally falls over in the scene and has to like get up.
They did not tell them that was going to happen. That's like the famous bit of trivia about
it is,
which you know, I love that so much.
I love it too because it's a subtle shock. Like the people there are shocked, but they're like in disbelief as like they're like, what the fuck is happening? Like
they react so naturally, like afraid of it because they think that he's actually hurt because he's supposed to be having a heart attack or something. Whatever they told him that he was supposed to be, that he's like, oh, he's gonna have a heart attack and die or whatever. They didn't tell him that a motherfucking squib was gonna explode in their faces.
Well, not only that, but like the blood burst like from his chest, and you can see people like knowing that they didn't know. It's funny to like watch the reactions because first there's just like a spurt of blood like in his shirt or whatever, and they're like, you can tell they're like, what the fuck? Like like if he were told like, oh, he's gonna have a heart attack, he's gonna be writhing, you gotta like, oh shit, what's wrong? But then there's like the spurt of blood in his shirt, it stays kind of contained, and they're like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then this thing like comes out and like the shit goes
and then looks
everywhere.
At them,
like somebody gets splattered in the face and they're like jump back like, oh my God. I think it's great because it does feel genuine.
There's a reason that's a like huge part of this movie.
Screaming bloody murder, but in the fact they're like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I don't know what is happening.
Well, that's the fear of the unknown thing. That's like really like the way you compared this movie to Jaws. That's accurate because this movie does a great job at concealing its punches. You know what I mean? Like this, it's not that it hits, with such a heavy fist. It's just that it's hitting you when you're not expecting it. And it hits very effective points. Do you know what I mean? Like to expand that metaphor a little bit. Like it's, I don't know. To me, it's really smart about the way that it approaches things and the way that it backs away from things, the way that it doesn't show certain things. The most we see of the monster, for example, the xenomorph, is at the end of the movie when it's hiding amongst the pipes and tubing of her escape shuttle and she's just keeping her eyes on it, unblinking. It's brilliant because this is a thing like if it is aware that she's there, which I gotta think it is, like it's sitting in there trying to conceal itself using perfect camouflage for itself, and she has to like very slowly make her move. I don't know. I think that like before that, everything is in shadow, everything is hidden, everything is concealed. The most you see is that, and then the thing bursting out of its chest. Otherwise, you don't know shit, and none of it is explained. None of it is like they're all operating on question marks. They're all operating on assumptions and like lack of information. It just makes everything that much more terrifying. It's being, it's finding a monster in the dark. That's so much more effective than it could be if they did the B-movie trope of having it clamor around really big all day long and then showing it full, like.
Well, we were watching that movie the other, where the thing Rawhead Rex, and I think I specifically mentioned this movie maybe where it's just like, God, like you don't, because even this like was a dude in a suit, and there's a couple times where the movement is like it reveals that a little bit where they did their best to like conceal it, but for the most part did a brilliant job in like working with that, like where it's like if you saw it and you saw this dude like strolling through the corridors, it would look stupid and ridiculous, and like you just have to have the forethought to like think that and shoot it in special kind of ways. Let's shoot it close up, or let's like build the tension with music and shit like that. Whereas like Rawhead Rex just fucking walking around looking
he's
like
just
shit.
Wandering about.
I wanted to touch on one thing. God, I think this movie's so brilliant, and it really is just like a lot of it I feel like is like Ridley Scott just like being a smart dude. But even with the underwear shot, we talked about how it's like not sexualized, but everything in this movie also just kind of makes sense. And that when that like underwear scene shot happens, I feel like why it doesn't feel so sexualized too is that like the danger in her mind is now gone. It's not like the tropes of like the slasher movie where something's out there and you still go out in the middle of the woods to like go fuck or something, where it's like, why the fuck would you do that?
There's no eye-opening shot.
Yeah, at this point, it's like at some point you have to let your guard down, and now you have blown up the ship and you think you're safe, and that's when it happens. It's when it feels practical, and as a viewer you're like, well, yeah, like you gotta like at some point you're not always just on guard, but also she's not stupid either, so she's not getting naked like in the middle of this like struggle against an alien. It's like once she feels comfortable, and that just feels like practical. Everything in this like feels practical. You feel like these are real people making real decisions, and you can see like where the robot is manipulating them. You can see like that's where it comes from, like the flaws in the plan, like, oh shit, we're supposed to quarantine this guy's working for the company. It's not stupid bullshit like, oh shit, there's an alien out there and I'm gonna take my clothes off. It's like it's the real decisions made by
my boyfriend went outside to investigate a noise and I'm gonna go shower.
yeah
it's not that. That's true.
So
and like,
I respect it. Like,
I don't know. It's tough to criticize this movie. And I I don't know, partially because it's so revered that I don't want to like be flippant about it.
Sounds like Randy is about ready to give his rating.
Yeah, I guess so. That's true.
Out of 5. How you feel, Randy?
So yeah, it's hard to criticize this movie. I'm trying right now to like, and you guys jump in if you have one, but I don't know if I have a huge complaint about this movie. It's really tough for me to... I
will say my only complaint is that this movie moves slowly and it is long.
That didn't bother me though.
Cheap complaints, and yeah, it did bother me. I completely understand if it would not bother someone else, but as far as, I mean, that's really all I got. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't know what I'm supposed to add to the conversation that's already happened around this movie. You know, this is another one of those classics that's so untouchable and so like well regarded that you can't really make a half-assed argument against it and expect it to hold water with people. So I don't know. It's not that it's, the thing is, like, if I had one, then I would definitely go for it. I wouldn't hold back, but I don't really have a big argument about this movie being anything less than what it's revered as. And as such, I really don't like, the one thing I'll say is on a personal level, this movie has never fully grabbed me the way it sounds like it has for Juice and so many other people. It just, for whatever reason, it doesn't strike the same chord with me. It might be just some sort of like inane preference that I can't even put a name to, but there's something about it that, like, you know, it strikes me in every positive way except for the X factor, and that X factor is pretty important, you know, when it comes to when it comes to enjoying a movie. But I'm going to ignore that because, again, I can't put a name to it. I have no solid ground to stand on to criticize it for me having preferences that this movie didn't take into account. So all that said, I got to give it a 5. I don't know what else you could ask from a movie like this. I love Aliens as well. Like this, I think Aliens is maybe a preferred movie to me just because it's more action oriented, which,
and hips don't lie.
You know, and what?
Bonus points for Bill Hips Don't Lie Paxson.
That's true. There are bonus points for your boy. Yeah. But I don't know. To me, it's about as firm and well made of a horror movie as you could get, certainly around this time. There's a reason that it has the regard it has. What's to complain about, really?
Yeah.
5 stars from me.
All right. 5-star pizza from Randy. Juice, what about you?
What the fuck?
I really dig this movie. There's a lot that we didn't touch on. Just the practical effects and the sets that they build for this. Like when they go to the planet, even like we didn't even touch on them. They go to this planet. It's all rocky. They have to like walk through this like storm. Yeah, the alien spaceship. Like the scale of it when that dude is first walking up.
Yeah.
And like there's this giant alien dead body laying in this like
that blew my fucking mind a little bit.
Yeah.
I had forgotten all about that.
So immersive. You're like, holy shit. And then they go into the pod and into the cave, and then there's another big wide shot and you just get to see like the scale of this. Mm-hmm. And then the egg chamber where the fog is just kind of sitting there, and like the design of the egg and how it like pops open. Again, with the sexualized thing, we didn't even talk about kind of how like the face hugger when it dies, like how it looks like it kind of
like a vagina.
Kinda, yeah.
So does the egg when it opens. When
it opens up.
That's not vaginal. I don't know. I don't see vaginal on the egg.
But even
it has 4 flaps.
I love
what kind of vagina.
Here's a little more trivia. The only reason it has 4 flaps was because they made them at a second cross. It was supposed to be just the one and look like a vagina, and they're like, that looks too much like a vagina, so they added another one to make it look like a cross vagina, which I guess is less offensive.
Well, it's less real, so I didn't make the connection at all. So I wish they had done that. 1 star. No. Found the flaw.
But like even just the decisions about the overall like design and stuff, like you could see through the egg and you could see it in there. It's just like so many decisions about the design of this add to the overall tension and the world. It's great world building, the derelict ship and stuff. And another thing we didn't touch on is the sound and how it adds to the horror of this. There is one specific moment that just like kind of blows my mind every time. It's so well done. It's when the guy is going through the air ducts and you have like kind of three different things happening at the same time. There's like the beeping of the like alien progressing toward this guy and the suspense that it builds. The woman on the other end is like freaking out. So she's like kind of like her voice is getting higher and higher, more frantic, and the alien and the crescendo of like the music all pops at the same time for the scare. So the alien like pops out and it's like kind of like a jump scare, but the way it builds and blends all of these sound effects together, like the increasing beeping and then the woman kind of like screeching and like the alien like screaming and stuff, like it adds so much to the overall feeling of this film. I think this film is just like really brilliantly made. As far as negatives, they're not like real, but to add anything to this movie,
they're not real.
They're not real. But I don't want anybody to harp on me too hard about mentioning these things. But I mean, because they did the best they could, and the film looks amazing. But there's a couple moments. One I can think about. After the thing bursts out of the chest, when it's supposed to like run away, kind of looks not great. It looks a little silly.
Like when it's looking at him and shit.
No. It like looks at them and that's fine, but it like scampers away.
Right, yeah.
And it makes like segment. A little like rat noise or like like that's not great.
I always think of the Spaceballs alien when I see that scene. Yeah, I can't help it. It's so necessary to think about fucking the Michigan J Frog approach to that scene.
Yeah. And also there's just a handful of times where they can't quite conceal that it's a dude in a suit. Like there's when they kind of zoom out a little bit, maybe when it's like laying in the final ship a little bit. And then there's one more moment too, like, I don't know, where it uncurls or something, where it just looks like a dude in a suit. It doesn't look great. And then even when it kind of pops out in the air ducts, it like kind of spreads its arms out and it kind of looks a little funny. So there's like a couple of moments where like you could kind of see the strings a little bit where it falls apart. But, you know, like, I don't know. I feel like I really want to be very forgiving because they are very minor things. But since we couldn't think of any other negatives, I wanted to mention them. But overall, I am going to give this movie a 5-star. I really enjoy it. I think it's awesome.
Cool. 5-star from Juice. Quick maths. Yes.
Do those quick. Yeah, I know you got to calculate. Let's calculate.
Yeah, man.
Got you fuckers at a bad time.
Bob, yes. What do you think of Alien from 1979?
Let me tell you. I'm going to make a statement that is probably somewhat controversial. I think the first hour of this movie is pretty boring, to be honest.
You're a monster! What the hell is wrong with you?
Couple things are wrong with me. I don't know. This is so Dan O'Bannon and H.R. Geiger were both pretty influenced by Lovecraft, and Lovecraft has this thing where he's all about atmosphere and slow, methodical, like creepiness. You know, there's a slow creepiness to his work, which definitely comes through plainly in this movie. And I don't know, sometimes I'm down for that and sometimes I'm not, and I can't necessarily explain what the differentiator is. For some reason, I just get kind of bored with this, though. The first time and the second time I watched it, where I just felt kind of bored until things really started going, and you get that.
Destroyer of life! Randy is fucking up your review.
I know. You get that chest burster scene, and then then you're kind of there, but it takes a while to get there. And yeah, there's a lot of really interesting set design happening before then, but for me, man, if you could somehow cleave out 20 minutes and just get there a little quicker, and that probably says more about me back in 1979. I feel like people were just start to finish getting their fucking minds blown, But
the way you phrase that, I was back in 1979, I wouldn't have liked this or something.
I probably would have liked it more. I'm sure I would.
You're older than I thought, Bob.
I'm an old bish. But just that's my current read on it. I felt the same way about The Shining though. And like I said, one day it just like clicked and I was like, holy shit, this is an absolute masterpiece. Maybe I'll get there with Alien.
Motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
But that's just like personal preference kind of stuff. As far as like the actual craft of this movie, I mean, I can't complain about any of it. Really, I just can't.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give it a 4. That's just me.
Quite ironic.
That's going to put the aggregate at a 4.7. Let's go ahead and jump over to our Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users think about Alien.
Certified fresh to death.
Jesus Christ, Bob. I hope you're ready to take the heat. The heat is coming your way. Send all
Bob.
That's just like
at
your
bob.com.
That's
bobstains.gov.
Not Stains. That's me.
Bobstains.gov.
You can't take my thing.
Who runs this segment now? What's happening?
I run the goddamn
Randy.
segment.
There we go.
Rotten Goddamn Tomatoes segment. Here it comes. We're going to.
We are all fine here.
Everything is great. Nobody's being an idiot. I'm going to have these two gentlemen try it to the best of their ability to guess the both critic and user score as listed on RottenTomatoes.com. So we're going to start with our critic score, of course, which there are 121 aggregated on this. Out of 0 to 100%, I'm going to start with Juice on this one. Justin, what do you think this movie scored?
This is tough to consider, but I gotta feel like people are favorable to this movie. Maybe not quite 100%, but I'll give it a 93.
93. That's a good year. Bob?
Yeah,
what's your feeling?
It's got to be up there. I'll go 94. 94.
Ooh,
whoa,
$1.
An even newer year. Bob, you're going to take it on this one.
Damn it.
This movie has a scorching 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. Absolute barn burner of the fucking movie, this one. Before I get into the critics' consensus, I'm going to go ahead and do the audience score here. So, Bob, you get the benefit of first choice here. What are you thinking for the critics? The users, of which there are damn near 500,000 reviews.
Wow.
That's a ton. It's got to be up there again. I'd probably guess in the 90s still, but maybe a little lower. I'll do a 92.
92. Juice?
Yeah, I'm on $1, Bob, and stick with my 93.
93. Well, it was a good choice. You, my friend, walk away with the audience score, which is 94%.
Ooh,
94. Nice.
Bob, you should have stuck with it too.
Right there.
Yeah. Tight grouping.
I be stroking.
I'm always stroking, baby.
Always.
So yeah, here's the critics' consensus on here. A modern classic, Alien blends science fiction, horror, and bleak poetry into a seamless whole.
Bleak poetry.
Even that consensus is dripping with sexual undertones.
Damn.
I got a seamless hole. You want
the old seamless hole.
That's my new band, Seamless Hole. Check us out. We're on iTunes.
Oh my god! So yeah, that's a beloved film on all levels.
The poetry section though made me think of when we covered Alien Covenant, and the old fish was just like desperately trying to link it to something more sophisticated, and we were just shitting
Paradise
on that
Lost is what he was.
Yeah, we're like, nah, fuck that. This movie sucks.
It's like, I see where, yes, but he did it poorly.
Yeah, that's still bad.
Look, man,
that's what it made me think of.
Sometimes your nerd brain overrides your actual brain. It's a truth.
You know what's
love you, old
interesting?
bish, but goddamn.
You know what's interesting about this, like Alien and then Aliens 2, is it really reminds me of Terminator in the same kind of vein. Whereas like the first Terminator was more like kind of horror based.
Oh yeah,
and more kind of like low budget. And then the second one's just like purely like.
And then the third one's shit.
Of that, yeah. So there you go.
It's the perfect. The T Terminator arc is complete.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then they just keep churning out bullshit for a long time.
Except for Prometheus. But let's go ahead and get into trivia. Time for trivia. Let's do it.
We covered Prometheus.
It's totally time for trivia.
Covered Prometheus on this show?
No, I don't think so. We did Covenant. I think that's the only other Alien movie we've done.
Damn, I thought that was like one of the twins' picks or something. Like, we're gonna watch Prometheus.
I don't think so.
All right, so we're doing some trivia, and we sprinkled some in because this is an older movie and it's a beloved movie, and it's got a lot of interesting shit to talk about. So we sprinkled a little bit of that into the main review, but I've got some more because there's a shit ton, 330 items in the trivia on IMDb. A couple of these I'm going to try to form into a game, kind of like we do Rotten Tomatoes a little bit. So we'll see how successful I am at doing that.
Really putting the gun to your head.
Juice got game. Let's see.
We're going to play some Russian roulette with our segments this week.
So the first one was the blue laser lights that were used in the alien ship's egg chamber were borrowed from a band who was testing out the lasers from their sound stage next door. So, boys, can you guess 1979 what band would be chilling in the soundstage next door to where this movie was being made?
I have to look up one thing real quick.
Yeah,
just to make sure my dates are right.
I don't
think this is right, but I have a guess.
Yeah.
I have a guess.
Yeah,
Bob, you go first.
Pink Floyd.
Ooh, good guess.
I was going to go with Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap. Great guesses on both. You are both wrong, but there's a lot of bands to choose from, so it's kind of a difficult. But The Who. Who is The Who? The Who is hanging out next door, testing out their blue laser beams.
I wish they'd use the. I want to see a version of this movie with The Who soundtrack.
Yeah.
Who?
I just want Who.
The Who. So this is not a question, but the dead facehugger, the Ash autopsies, was made using fresh shellfish, 4 oysters, and a sheep kidney to recreate the internal organs.
Sounds like a damn good Christmas feast to me.
Yeah.
They also used like pig intestines for the chest burster scene. And apparently setting that whole gag up and like getting the lights right and everything took several hours. So the guts were just like baking under the lights. And by the time they brought the crew in to shoot the scene, it stunk to high heavens. Bummer. That sounds terrible.
That's awful.
Okay.
What? There was another movie where they did that as well.
Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah, Texas Chainsaw. I was like, what am I thinking of? What is this?
Yeah.
But that lasted for days. Those poor
Jesus
fuckers,
Christ,
instead of a few hours.
Yeah. That movie was not kind to anyone, really.
Definitely
there was a famous actor during this time who turned down the role of Captain Dallas. Can you guess who that actor might be?
Can you give us a hint? Is it somebody that's still like pretty relevant now? Or?
Harrison Ford.
Yeah. Yep, ding-a-ling, baby.
Oh, wow. That was a total guess.
Since Bob nailed it.
Oh, okay. What is it?
It was Harrison Ford.
Oh, Harry.
Yep, old Harry turned down the role of Captain Dallas.
Harry Toyota, whatever your name is.
Harry and the Hendersons.
It was conceptual artist Ron Cobb who it's almost like Rob. Ron.
It's
Cobb.
almost like it, except both are wrong.
That's my dad's name. It's not my name.
Ron Cobb is your father?
The first name.
Your father is Ron Cobb? Okay. He came up with the idea that the alien should bleed acid as a way for them to explain why they didn't just shoot the alien.
Yeah,
with the gun.
That's clearly one of the most brilliant, or one of the best pulls out of this movie.
Yeah,
because it like not only is it like plot wise brilliant to establish that, but also this is a perfect killing machine. It also has perfect defenses. It perfectly enables itself to stay alive by making it impossible to physically harm it. I don't know. I think that's great. That's always been my favorite idea. Part of the xenomorph theory or the idea.
And the last thing you want holes in is your fucking spaceship,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's we got to stop this burning real quick.
Yeah. So I will give a little, I don't know, to make it easier to guess. The xenomorph screen time is under 20 minutes in this film. Who can guess the closest to how much screen time the xenomorph gets in this film? Under 20 minutes. Guess, boys.
Who?
Both of you. So Randy first.
Oh, we're going to scream over each other? Okay. That sounds normal for us. I'm going with under 20 minutes. I'm going with 11 minutes.
Okay. Robert.
I'll say 7.
Okay.
Ooh, the 7-11 split.
Robert's on fire today. It is not 7, but it's 4 minutes of screen time. Total screen time. Xenomorph.
Oh, you're a monster!
So that's kind of nuts. And it doesn't show up until the first hour. So you don't the xenomorph isn't even present in this movie until the first hour. So talking to Bob's I understand Bob's, qualms. It didn't bother me, but I could see where you'd be like, come on.
It didn't feel overlong to me at all. I don't know. I don't have a perfect patience for overlong movies, but I have more than most, or more than a lot of people, I think.
However, the original cut of this movie ran 3 hours and 12 minutes. So it could have been a lot longer. And apparently Ridley Scott's original cut was a lot bloodier. But because of negative reactions of test audiences and the possibility of an X rating, scenes with violence and gore were cut down. Now, however, despite these things, this sounds interesting and I'm trying to search for it exactly. But I can't quite find it. But I read earlier that Ridley Scott was not about them releasing a director's cut, Blu-ray or whatever, which is why I was asking what Bob thought about it. Because
you know what? I think I heard that before.
Yeah, he pretty much was why the original is pretty much flawless, which is a little hubris, I guess.
Yeah, that's definitely hubristic.
But he was why? Yeah, why? The original is perfect the way it is.
I would be pissed if I'm the director and they release a director's cut
that you don't
what the fuck? Can you guys not think of any other ways to make money, for fuck's sake?
Mm-hmm. Also, he originally wanted to use animatronics for this, but they, because of technology at the time, they couldn't quite do what they wanted. So the guy they hired to play the alien, God, this dude's name is nuts. Balaji Badejo. Yeah. He was a graphic artist, Randy, who was discovered at a pub by one of the casting directors. He was 7 feet 1 inches tall and he had very thin arms, apparently. Just what they needed to make the alien look less human and more insect-like. He was sent for Tai Chi and mime classes to learn how to slow down his movements. And they also constructed a special swing for him to sit down during filming. And that way, when he had to change positions and stuff, it looked less normal. So yeah.
Dude, what if I met some dude in a bar and I was telling you guys, hey, I met this guy in a bar. He wants me to play the monster in his horror movie.
Yeah.
And then we came out with fucking Alien.
Yeah, that'd be nuts.
I'd be so stoked.
I just met this random dude.
I'd make you guys kiss my ring. I'm not gonna lie.
Kiss my ring. Damn.
Kiss my ring.
There's, as I said, there's 330 items of trivia, and a lot of it is very interesting. There was a scene that was cut and whatnot, but we obviously don't have the time. And hopefully,
who had sex?
Dallas and Sigourney Weaver, Dallas and Ripley, apparently. But hopefully our listeners enjoyed this new spicy version of trivia. The way Juice
the flaming hot variety.
Flaming hot Cheetos version.
Yeah, goddamn right.
Section.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, let's go ahead and talk Cooter of the week.
Who is this going to?
Hunt them.
I feel like this, to me anyways, is obvious. Ash. It's got to be Ash.
Hey, Bob.
Ash is literally the only name that came to mind.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, what are we doing, Juice? What are we doing?
Yeah,
let's break down the Cooter. We got to hunt them. We got to round them up. We are talking Cooters. Cooter is the character type. Cooter must hit 3 of these 5 points in order to be considered a Cooter. The higher points you get, the higher Cooter rating you are. So you got to hit, or these are the 5 points. You got sexual deviancy, smug arrogance, manipulation, overall patheticness, and overall attire / look. So Bob is throwing Ash into the ring. Defend yourself, Bob.
Defend yourself.
I might have to change that simply because Ash is only doing what he's programmed to do. Who programmed him? Somebody who was employed by the Wayland
Paul
Utoni
Reiser.
Corp. So, I might have to go with a corporation on this one, I guess, because that's where all of this is coming from. Because he is manipulative as fuck. He turns out to be somewhat sexually deviant, I guess, if you consider that attempted murder on Ripley to be sexually deviant.
Sure.
Self-importance. I believe you could consider that, but again, it's hard to argue because he's only doing what he has programmed to do. He has
he values self-importance,
no free will,
because he makes that big speech about how the alien is a perfect life form because it doesn't give a shit and just wants to survive.
As a robot, he says he's like, I respect it. So he has some form of individual.
He's like the perfect Turing passing motherfucking cyborg, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so anyway, I'll give him those 3 off the bat right there.
So he qualifies.
His attire, he's kind of dressed like everybody else, but he does spew liquid.
He does sweat,
looks
white,
like jism.
and he's got balls in his neck.
What?
When they pop his head off, he's full of dangly balls.
Adam's apple or what?
No. There's literal
little ball sacks,
little juicy balls.
I missed the ball sack scene. I don't know.
I mean, not ball sack. No, you're saying ball sack. Listen.
Okay, well,
I'm saying balls.
Okay, well, you don't have to be disgusting about it, buddy. All right.
No, you're literally the one who just keeps saying balls. His neck, his wires. I don't know if it's to make him look more organic. He's some kind of hybrid between robot, but I don't know. There's like clear balls that I don't know.
Anyway,
maybe
what are these ball sacks hanging?
I don't think he's.
I be smoking.
I don't really think he's pathetic because he's a robot, and I don't know how you could deem that as being pathetic.
I mean,
but the programmer,
anybody can be pathetic, but yeah.
The programmer,
if we're going with the programmer / company, if we wanted to talk about pathetic, I mean, they do have some kind of mother complex. They do name mother.
It's perfect for
so Danzig is the Cooter, is what we're saying.
See that? No, that's a good point, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier about how that choice is so weird, and that's the most overt sexualized or biologically indicative thing, because what person's sitting down is making a computer and is like, what are we going to call a computer? Call it mother. Can we call the computer mother, please? What if Google came out with a new fucking
best friend?
What if the new Amazon Dot or whatever was mother instead of
nuts
Alexa? That would be fucking
in an
absurd.
Android's throat.
And everybody would be like, what is Jeff Bezos has issues. More than we thought. The man already looks like a ball sack. Anyway, so I don't know. I think that's why that stood out. Whereas it
is a weird choice.
To death with a magazine could be indicative of maybe she's a rabid dog to him. I don't know.
Yeah, especially because the computer doesn't really have a personality. They could call it computer, or it doesn't need it doesn't even. It does. Giving it a name,
it does,
especially one that's mother, is very strange because it's not that prevalent.
Yeah. So we're going with the programmer that was employed by Wayland.
I mean, hold on. I think there's a short argument. At least talk me through how the xenomorph is not a Cooter.
Okay. Oh, we could have an alien Cooter. Hey, let's talk about it.
I think that's important.
So if we go off the intentions of the writer, it rapes a man.
It rapes many people.
Yeah.
Or as a method of living.
Sexual deviancy.
Right. Sexual deviance is off the scale.
It is a perfect organism. Can we associate that with some kind of smug arrogance?
I guess it doesn't really have it doesn't have the kind of nuanced emotion that would dictate self-importance.
Now there was
it's
one
just surviving. That's all.
Yeah, I don't know if it's self-importance. This is a weird thought I had in the final scene where I was like, does it know that she's there? Because otherwise,
I always thought I thought that too.
Yeah, for the most part, it's like pretty on point with like killing things, and it obviously has a lot of intelligence. But if it's now on this tiny ship where it has to like hide itself with no food source, and also like if she dies, essentially like it dies because like it can't fly a ship and it's in there. Yeah, so was it like, well, shit, hopefully she doesn't see me?
I wondered that too, because in that scene, it's really not clear. It seems like partially like she's getting one over on it, like he doesn't see her, but it's clearly hiding.
Yeah, I thought it was just like, well, like I hope like she doesn't try to kill me because there's not much I could do. If I kill her, like I'm dead.
I don't think it is thinking that way though, because like to me,
it is. Because
I thought a little bit.
It is intelligent, and its only motive is to survive. So
it's to survive.
Yeah, but why would it think that she's suddenly a threat when it could just as easily jump on her fucking neck?
Well, no, because that's what I'm saying. If it realizes like if she dies, it dies. Like the only way to survive at that point is literally just like lay low and hope that she gets in the cryo chamber
because it needs to get to a destination.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I see that.
So it's not, I guess you could say like maybe it's manipulative, maybe it's sexually deviant. I don't think you can say it's arrogant or pathetic, and I don't think you can make a case for the attire. That's where I'm at.
It does have a little thing that comes out of its mouth that looks.
It's a little guy.
It's like that's sexually like.
It doesn't.
It's got a little sexual guy in his mouth.
Hyper sexualized.
It's God H.R. Geiger is the one to blame for that. Okay.
I be smoking.
So we can't have a xenomorph Cooter. Bob says no.
I don't think it quite hits the number, just because of its sentience.
We do have like a cyborg, or no,
the kind of sentience it has, and that's the thing. That you could say the same thing about Ash, though. So I think the programmer is the only like thing that only, or the company are the only motives that we can fully understand, being the same like organism, the same species as that we can assign these human feelings and motivations to. Yeah. So I'm going to go with that too.
All right.
Cool. I like it. The programmer of all the shit from Whalen Utah.
The robot programmer.
he be stroking. Also, the company's not paying their mechanics properly, so that's pretty fucked up.
Yeah. That corporation is pretty high on the shit list of horror movie companies.
Don't work for them.
Yeah. It's the Amazon of space.
Don't do it. We got one more segment. If you are currently listening, it is time for our Hotline Scream. If you would like to call in and leave us a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, you can hit us up at 904-638-3231. This week, we got 2 voicemails, both of which are from the one, the only Hydraberg. You want to just play them back to back, Randy, I guess, and then we can talk about them afterwards?
Sure. I'm trying to figure out which one came first. Okay, it looks like this one. Here we go.
Let's do it.
What up, boys? It's your boy, Hydraberg. I'm just calling in about that question from last week. If I had tuberculosis or gout or maybe a hangnail or something like that, ingrown hair, if I could eat somebody to help that, I would totally eat Bill Cosby. Because he's a fucking piece of shit rapist. And also, he tastes just like Jello pudding pops. So he'd be delicious. Okay, guys, keep it up. Keep chilling.
I didn't know we could choose the victim. That's an entire...
Well, that was Bob's. Bob was like, who would you eat?
Oh, who would you...
That was Bob's contribution.
I don't recall it. Well,
let's be clear.
I mean, we chose Bill. Old Bill. Them pudding pops ain't carrying the same kind of positive weight they used to.
That's true.
But Hydraberg, I love fucking the speech to text. It says, "Hey, it's your boy Hydraberg," turns into "But I boil hard to break."
Don't we all
love that shit?
Randy does love that shit.
It's so funny to me. All right, let's go to Hydraberg's second call. The boy's ringing us off the hook. Here we go.
What up, boys? It's your boy, Hydraberg. Look at you guys. I get to call in twice this week. I just wanted to say Happy Alien Day, because today happens to be Alien Day, which is super convenient since you're doing Alien, which is, I don't know if you intended that, but if you did, kudos. If you didn't, take the credit anyway. Man, I really got shit a lot on the Slack because I don't like Alien Covenant from Prometheus because this movie is so good. Like, I don't like that he messes with it at all. I feel like this is almost a perfect film. To me, it's one of my top 5 horror films, and I just love the atmosphere. I'm a big sucker for like space horror, and like this sets the tone on like how to do space horror properly. I feel like the atmosphere is amazing. Like the gore that's there is good. The alien, the effects are all really good. There's a lot of subtlety. The cinematography is amazing. I just like the lighting, like everything just comes together to make like such a good film. I can imagine just seeing it for the first time when it came out. It must have like floored people. And just like the ending alone is like so good. Like the airlock scene is like so tense when the alien's like hiding in the equipment. Like it's just so, I don't know, man. It's just really good. And like Ripley just happens to be like one of the best like final girls like ever. So I just wanted to weigh in on that. And I hope you guys review it well. All right. Have a good one.
If I recall correctly, we got threatened that there would be repercussions if we gave this movie a negative score from Hydra.
He hopes we review it well. Hopefully we didn't let him down. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Well, you did, but not us. So.
I did.
Not me.
If anybody did, it was me for sure. But
yes, that's accurate.
We'll see.
Mathematically true.
We shall see. Thanks for calling in, Hydraberg. Always good to hear from you, man. I don't know about a 5-star though. I just don't know. No.
Now I will say, last month was it? I played through that Alien game or whatever, and now watching this just like a month later, they did actually a fantastic job of recreating like the sound design and the look of the ship and everything. It looks pretty fantastic.
Which Alien game is this? Is this a more recent game? Because I know they had
it came out 2014.
Okay, so not too long ago. Okay.
Yeah. So, God, what was the little subtext? Alien, like
isolation.
Isolation. Thank you. Goddamn. It was just like escaping my brain. Alien Isolation came out 2014, and it's hard. It's like a difficult game, but as far as like recreating like the alien like hunts you, and you have to use like a little like it's a little different than how they use in this game, but like the motion sensor a little bit, like to know, so you can only like know within a very limited range of like where something's like moving or something. So it's difficult, but as far as the feeling goes, they capture it. And sometimes the alien will just like scoop you up from the air vents, or just like it's like chase you down. It's like really tense. So they did a great job.
Nice.
If you enjoyed the Alien series and you want to get into video games, Alien Isolation might be for you.
Cool. Again, if you're listening, you want to call in and leave us a voicemail, you can hit us up at 904-638-3231. You guys have any questions this week?
Do I have any questions? I don't know. Would you work for Wayland Corp? If so, fuck you.
For half the show.
No, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Would you?
Do you find this alien sexy?
Are you hosting an intergalactic kegger down here?
Are you? I would say if you were Ripley, would you open the airlock and let Kane and the crew on, or not? Would you make them quarantine?
Dude, quarantine them.
Loaded.
What would you do? Yeah.
But the thing is, she's like, you got to quarantine for 24 hours, and they're like on this alien thing.
Yeah,
so she essentially being like,
unless it's in the airlock. Like,
yeah, I guess if it's in the airlock, but it's like, oh no, go back to the alien ship over there. Like, I don't know, where are you supposed to go?
Go hang out with that giant alien corpse for a day.
Yeah, and then I don't know how much life support you have in those little suits. So
those little suits, they're loaded with life support, buddy. Don't worry.
Randy knows.
To the brim.
The seamless hole.
Spoken like a company man.
I don't know if it's because Alien Day was coming out, but I saw it like 2 days ago. I don't know, just a random post on Facebook. But there was this crossover art that somebody had posted, and it looked really cool. And it was essentially of Darth Vader and stormtroopers like taking over like the alien planet. Like this was like a planet, but it was like done in like a very dark kind of serious tone. So it was like,
that's cool.
Darth Vader with his red lightsaber and like a xenomorph like across from him, or actually it was like several or whatever. I don't know. It was just cool art, and some of it was just like stormtroopers being overtaken by like giant xenomorphs. So I was like, oh, that's a cool little crossover arc.
That's the kind of thing that's great until Disney acquires the Alien series, and all of a sudden it becomes a reality.
That's terrible, yeah.
Then it's fucking terrible.
But as far
Disney,
as concept art is, it looked really cool.
Disney has them, right? Because it's a Fox.
Do they know? Oh, it is
shit,
a Fox.
Now they do. Whoa, here we go.
So
we're going to see them in the Senate. The next time there's a Senate meeting in Star Wars, there's going to be a little...
be like, this is Senator Ridley. I'm here on behalf of the xenomorph population.
Gracious. That's going to do it for us this week. We're going to be back next week with a brand new show, as always. Due to the coronavirus situation, a lot of the new releases we were planning on covering on the show have been pushed back till later this year, if not next year. So we're going to do some picks like we used to do back in the olden days.
Old school. Whoa.
So next
week... Back when we were young and Justin was an embryo.
That's right. Next week, we're going to let Justin pick a movie. Justin, what are we talking about?
We are going to talk about a movie called Thirst. It is a Korean film. And God, I can't remember the year it came out. In past 10 years, I believe. It's a vampire tale. And it's a movie I really enjoy and think is very interesting. And I remember one of the reasons I picked it is I remember the first time watching it and really wanting to talk about it like with somebody, and I didn't have anybody to talk about it with. Just the
2009 is when that came out.
Oh, is that okay? So man, so 2009, and so I just like really wanted to discuss a lot of the elements within this movie. So that's why I picked it.
Well, damn, You're getting your chance now. Forcing it.
Tell me what you think, boys. So yeah, that's next week.
Sweet deal. Slam your eyeballs into Thirst. Get ready for next week's show. Until then, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at STR8_chilling, on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. Send us a email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. Don't forget about our Joe Bob live watch party next Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, until then, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.